Welcome to the DePaul College of Law Bluebook Podcast, a series of podcasts designed to teach 1L students the basics of legal citation using the Bluebook. In Episode 3, we explored some of Bluebook's rules for forming and abbreviating case names. We looked at Rule 10.2.1 C, D, and H. Today we're going to expand on Rule 10.2.1 by looking at subsections A, B, E, and F. You may find that looking at Blue Page's Rule B4.1.1, subsections 1, 3, 4, and 5 may help you understand some of the nuances and important highlights from A, B, E, and F. Now, as a reminder, Rule 10.2.1 applies specifically to case names in cites and textual sentences. This is not a rule that's only for citation sentences. When formatting a case name for a citation sentence, that is, where your cite appears at the end of the sentence within its own sentence, you're going to apply all of these rules plus all of Rule 10.2.2. Again, for a shortened version of Rule 10.2.1, refer to Blue Page's Rule B4.1.1 found on pages 7 through 9. Rule 10.2.1a applies to actions and parties. If a case is a consolidated matter, we're going to use just the first case's name. A consolidated matter is where you'll have case A, which is A versus B, consolidated with case B, which is parties C versus D. In that case, you'll be citing to just A versus B. When deciding what parties to list in your case name, use just the first party listed on each side. Don't be confused by partnership names, though. If a partnership name contains what looks like many surnames, you're going to include all of those surnames as it's an entire partnership that's the party. We're also not going to eliminate relators. So those are going to be cases that are brought on behalf of, as next friend of, and we're going to abbreviate those phrases as ex rel. We'll include both parties in that case. We're also going to omit words indicating multiple parties or alternative names for a party. Therefore, if you see a name followed by et al. At the beginning of your case caption, you're going to eliminate the et al. And just list the first party. You do not need to account for the parties on either side that you've eliminated. We're also not going to use other alternative names, so anything listed as doing business as, or DBA, or also known as, or AKA, can be eliminated. The actions and parties under 10.2.1a can also apply to in rem cases. We'll remember that in rem cases are cases brought about inanimate objects. In such a case, we're going to list just the first item. So, a case about the 3 bears, 3 chairs, and 3 beds would become in re 3 bears, not in re 3 bears, 3 chairs, and 3 beds. For cases about real property, we're going to use the common street address and omit the city, state, and zip. We would cite to in re 42 Wallaby Way, not in re 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney. Sometimes, in bankruptcy and child protection matters, as well as some kinds of marital dissolution cases, a case may have 2 names, an adversarial name and a non-adversarial name. These cases will be subcaptioned. If you have such a case where you have both an adversarial name and a non-adversarial name, you're going to cite the adversarial name first. The non-adversarial name will appear in parentheses after the adversarial name with the appropriate procedural phrase attached to the non-adversarial. If only one name appears in the case caption, use that name. Again, not all bankruptcy, not all child protection, and not all marital dissolution cases will be subcaptioned. This will vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Here's an example of a combined name. This is a child protection matter. The main caption of the case was the people of the state of Illinois versus Sharonda B. It was subcaptioned in the interests of India B, Dale B, and Asia B. It would become people v. Sharonda B. People, because we're going to eliminate the state of Illinois, a rule that we're going to be going over later in this podcast, v. Sharonda B. The subcaption then happens in parentheses after people v. Sharonda B, in re India B. I eliminated Dale B and Asia B because they're additional parties listed, that aren't necessary for my case site. Notice that the entire name, both the adversarial name, the non-adversarial name, and the parentheses, all of this would be italicized or underlined. Rule 10.2.1b governs procedural phrases. Procedural phrases tell us the relationship of parties and are used to abbreviate certain phrases that you might find in your case caption. XREL would be used for on the relationship of, for the use of, on behalf of, as well as next friend of. Whenever you have two parties that are connected by a procedural phrase such as these in the case caption, you're going to eliminate the phrase and substitute in XREL. In re is used as a substitute for in the matter of, petition of, application of, or in the interests of. When you have any one of those procedural phrases in your case caption, eliminate that and substitute in re. We're going to omit all procedural phrases except for the first listed. We're also going to include descriptive or introductory phrases for a case, such as estate of, will of, or accounting of. These are also non-adversarial cases, usually, and many of them will not have an adversarial name to use. Procedural phrases should always be underlined or italicized, but not both. The good news is, since you're looking at these rules mostly for use of citation in a memo or ordinary court document, you're not going to notice any difference in your typeface. These phrases will be underlined with the rest of the case name or italicized with the rest of the case name, depending on which mode you chose. Rule 10.2.1e deals with descriptive terms. We're going to omit terms such as administrator, appellee, executor, licensee, trustee, or any other terms that further describe a named party. Therefore, instead of writing something like Malfoy v. Potter, executor, it would become Malfoy v. Potter. Retain the descriptive term, though, if the party is not specifically named. So in the case of Malfoy versus the trustees of Hogwarts School, we're going to keep trustees. Notice the second option here abbreviates both trustees and school. This is the difference between 10.2.1 and 10.2.2. If my case is being cited in a citation sentence, I'm going to use that second option that abbreviates all the words that I could find in T6. Both trustees and school appear in table T6. 10.2.1f deals with geographical terms. When citing state court decisions, where you have a phrase such as the people of Michigan or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we're going to omit the name of the state, making it People v. Furby or Commonwealth v. Elmo. The state is not important in such circumstances because the state is mentioned either textually or within the sentence. But when citing similar decisions from the federal courts where People of Michigan or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is a party, we're going to eliminate the people or eliminate Commonwealth and keep the state name. So once People v. Furby travels into the federal court system, it becomes Michigan v. Furby. And once Commonwealth v. Elmo travels into the federal court system, it becomes Pennsylvania v. Elmo. We're going to omit city of and similar expressions unless the expression begins the case name. So if you were talking about a party that was the mayor of the city of Chicago, we would be able to eliminate the second procedural phrase of the city. It becomes mayor of Chicago. Or once again, employing my rules from 10.2.2, where I'm going to abbreviate every word that I can, I'm going to change Chicago to CHI, as it's one of the geographical terms contained in table T10. I'm also going to omit all prepositional phrases of location not following city, or like expressions, unless the omission leaves only one word in the party name, or if the geographical designation or location is part of the name of the party. So I'm not going to write something like the Juvenile Detention Center of Cook County, but instead we'll write the Juvenile Detention Center. The of Cook County isn't part of the formal name of the party. I can eliminate it. I'm going to include designations of national or larger geographic areas, except in union names. I'm still going to cut of America from the United States. Look at this first example. The parties are United States versus the Unified Bank of America. I cut of America from United States, but because of America is a designation of national or larger geographic area, I'm going to retain it in the other party's name. I'm also going to retain all geography that's not introduced by a preposition. So, Gladstone v. Cook County Jail retains Cook County. If I were using Rule 10.2.2, I'd want to check on a few of these words. County may also be abbreviated. Here's a practice question. Generate the Bluebook form for this case name. Assume the case is in a citation sentence. You're going to want to pause this podcast now to work out your answer. How'd you do? The case is Gladstone v. Harper. Now, the original question told me that I had a consolidated case of Gladstone, trustee, versus a whole bunch of people, James Harper, Jane Fox, et al., and Gladstone v. Betty Jo Ironbear. Well, because this is a consolidated case, I know that I only need to list the first case. Looking at the first case, it's Gladstone, trustee, versus all these other people. I know that I can eliminate his first name, Jerry's first name, and just have Gladstone. I also don't need to include any of the descriptive phrases, like trustee of Drew University. So my first cited party is just Gladstone. V for versus, and then I have multiple parties listed et al. I only need to use the last name of the first listed person, which is Harper. Here's the next question. Again, pause the podcast until you've crafted your answer. How did you do this time? Okay, this is one of those cases that had a subcaptioning, so it wasn't a consolidated case, but one single case that had two different names, an adversarial name and a non-adversarial name. I'm going to list both in my answer. The adversarial name came from the people of the state of Illinois versus Charles Stanley. Assuming that this is in a state court, I'm going to eliminate the phrase of the state of Illinois and just use people. V, period. Charles Stanley. I can eliminate Charles. We do not use the first name of the party. The subcaption is in the interests of Charlene H., a minor. I know that in the interests of becomes in re. Charlene H. is the person I'm going to put in, and I know I don't have to include any other descriptors like a minor. So the final answer is people v. Stanley, in parentheses, in re Charlene H. Here's another practice question. Pause the podcast until your answer is done. How did you do this time? This time, instead of having a subcaption, we find out that Charles Stanley was acting on behalf of Charlene H. It had one of those relator phrases, as next friend to. Well, we know that we can eliminate as next friend to and substitute in, instead, ex rel. So the first party becomes Stanley, ex rel, Charlene H. The opposing party was the governor of the state of Illinois. We know we can eliminate that middle prepositional phrase of place of the state and consolidate it down to governor of Illinois. And because Illinois appears in table T10, we know that we can abbreviate Illinois to ILL period. Here's a final practice question. Once again, pause this podcast until you're ready for the answer. The answer is Stanley v. Illinois. You'll note that the question asked you how it would be captioned if the case were in the Federal Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit. Since this is not a state court case, but a federal case, instead of eliminating Illinois, we're going to eliminate the state of. Therefore, it becomes Stanley v. Illinois. Now, why isn't Illinois abbreviated? After all, the question did say that this is going to be in a citation sentence. Remember, we do not abbreviate our geographical location if it's the only word in the party. Therefore, Illinois is written in full and is not abbreviated under Rule 10.2.2 or Table T10. You've now completed Bluebook Lesson 5 and you're ready to complete Bluebook Exercise 5. Please see your LARC professor or TA if you have any additional questions.